China and Russia have decided to quit the dollar.
Russia is now engaged in financial war with the United States around the issues in Crimea and Ukraine. And over to China, China has $3 trillion in dollars, but they're buying gold as fast as they can. China worries that the U.S. is going to devalue the dollar through inflation, and so they want to have a hedge. If the dollar goes down, the gold will go up. So, China getting gold, Saudi Arabia backing away from the dollar, the U.S. and Russia confronting each other. Three of the legs of the stool, Russia, China, and Saudi Arabia, are all being pulled out from under the dollar. So this is very bad news for the dollar.
The Pentagon is working in conjunction with major U.S. universities to militarize social science and prepare for global civil breakdown.
The dollar is not going to collapse because of Russia and China's moves and other nations. In fact, China now has swap agreements with 20-some nations. But it's going to be destroyed by the insanity of the Western policy itself.
And now China and Russia have effectively switched to domestic currencies and trading using financial tools as swaps and forwards as they seek to reduce the influence of the U.S. dollar and foreign exchange risks. Is this a sign of the end of the dollar to have come?
The biggest energy deal in history could be the catalyst that leads to the greenback losing its place as the world's reserve currency.
Well, it's humiliating to the United States, and of course that's the impact that China, Russia, Cuba, Venezuela want to have on the United States. This is a coalition of communist countries, and what they're saying, quite frankly, is that the United States doesn't have leverage, and we're going to milk this for all that we can.
And indeed, setting up an alternative to the completely bankrupt Euro-American not only financial system, not just the dollar system, but the general economic decay, which is now sweeping the transatlantic. And counterposing between themselves and amongst all of the BRICS nations, a new world economic order, a new paradigm, including, as you know, the new banking systems, the new banks they're setting up, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank from China and the New Development Bank, which the BRICS set up last summer in Brazil.
But when China gets together with Russia, don't we have, double the problem?
We certainly do, because the China-Russia alliance is our #1 foreign policy challenge. We have not faced two peer competitors since the end of the Second World War, and we have not faced a united China and Russia since the end of the 1950s. These two countries are forming an enduring partnership, and they're both targeting the United States. They want to change the world in ways which will not make it better.
And this is, of course, a result of the policies that President Obama has embraced.
Which policies?
He's weakened our economy, so that now we have countries like China that have leverage over the United States, unthinkably, and also he's weakened us militarily. Just remember, last week the president said that he wanted to unilaterally disarm our nuclear power by 30%.
The problem is, you're exactly right, the United States has $17 trillion of debt. That's government debt. That's not counting all the unfunded liabilities for our Social Security and retirement, Medicare, Medicaid, student loans, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, all the guarantees. I mean, that amount is actually in the hundreds of trillions of dollars. There's no way, there's no combination of growth and taxes in the United States that can pay that debt.
In case you didn't hear, the leaders of China and Russia got together to talk about a way they could come up with their own currency to trade back and forth with each other. Now, you might be saying, Neil, what the heck does this mean to me? Well, let's say they do that. Let's just hypothetically say they do that. Then all of a sudden, what happens to our dollar? Well, there's not a big demand for our dollar because they're two of the biggest dollar players and buyers on the planet, right? So they pull themselves out, our dollar goes down, and you know the rest of the story. All of a sudden, we're in some big trouble.
It's leading towards a complete breakdown crisis, which is already hitting in Europe. As you know, the Greece are about to likely pull out of the euro, which could very well finish off the euro.
China and Russia said that they are renouncing the dollar, at least when it comes to bilateral trade deals. They're only going to use their own currencies.
Both Russia and China were keen to expand trade using their own currencies, the ruble and the yuan. Now, this is significant because both countries are prominent members of the BRICS Bank, which was established this year in an attempt to try and end the global dominance of the US dollar, which here in Beijing, President Putin said has no future, insisting that the ruble and the yuan have better long-term prospects.
As you know, the U.S. has been printing money at a rate unprecedented in human history. Until the quantitative easing stopped, it was about $80 billion per month. And in general, the series of bailouts of worthless gambling debts, the derivative bubble, has created a pool of well over $2 quadrillion in the West, which cannot be paid.
The Pentagon is working in conjunction with major U.S. universities to militarize social science and prepare for global civil breakdown.
As the U.S. economy's relative size to the others erodes, then obviously the dominance of the dollar is going to go. And
3 years, 20,000 more U.S. troops, but not to Iraq or Afghanistan. According to Pentagon officials, these men and women will be stationed inside of the U.S. Thousands of additional uniformed men and women set to be trained by 2011. They'll serve as a response to a possible mass terror attack or civil unrest following an economic collapse.
The Pentagon is working in conjunction with major U.S. universities to militarize social science and prepare for global civil breakdown.